Greg, thanks very much for coming on the call today.
Thanks very much for having me, Andy. I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a good one.
Well, let's just start off with tell us a little bit about what you do and how long you've been doing it.
Nice. So my name's Craig Hume. I'm managing director over at a company called Utopia Computers. We're a computer manufacturer that's been running for well over 20 years now. My dad set the business up way back then. That's kind of pre-Amazon, pre-eBay days. People were just starting to get connected to the internet. And back then, we were very much a PC repair store, like many of the thousands of other PC repair stores that are now dotted across the country. At that time, those early days, he kind of inspired me. He had had many different jobs. He was an engineer, so he had had lots and lots of different jobs. And I think he kind of wanted to try and do something that he actually really loved doing. So decided that his passion for technology was going to take him to the goal of setting up his own PC repair store. And seeing him enjoy his work inspired me to eventually join him in the business and now take the business forward. So while we still have a PC repair arm, we also do business support. So we look after local business networks, that kind of stuff. The main thrust and drive of our business is the custom built desktops, laptops and workstations that we build here in Scotland and supply to a whole host of different companies and organizations all across the country. So anything from creative agencies through to life sciences. If they're looking for a computer system to solve a very specific need, or perhaps have not had the service or quality that they were expecting from organizations elsewhere, they come to us and we try and wow them with amazing customer service, which is at the core of what we do. So while we're a technology company, we essentially want to make people happy. And we believe that if we can find their problem and then solve it through technology while giving them a great experience, they'll come back for more.
Brilliant, Craig. Thanks for that background. I'm always interested in the family dynamic of businesses. So you came in, your dad started the company, then you came in, and what's your role now?
So I'm managing director now. My dad retired a number of years ago and sadly is no longer with us. But that legacy that I carry is to basically continue to do what he saw. I mean, I saw you have a slight smile when you said family businesses, because the dynamic that my dad and I and my mum, who was still working in the business at the time as well, faced was incredibly challenging. To be able to have frank, challenging conversations that are separate from dinner table conversations is incredibly difficult. And while I am blessed to have spent that amount of time with my family in those types of in that environment, that's not to say that it was all easygoing. It took a long time for my dad to come around to some of the more extreme ideas that I had, and patience was the name of the game back then.
Yeah, I was thinking that, I couldn't possibly have worked with my father, and I doubt my kids could possibly ever work with me. But I guess the message I'm getting from you is it is possible, but you just need to be ready for the challenges and work through those.
Yeah, I think especially when I was younger, I think I had a lot of, I had a huge amount of learning to do. But when you've got really a young head on, you somehow think you know things already. And the great thing that my dad done was give me just enough to be able to find some learnings, to be able to explore some of the ideas, but without giving me so much that things spiraled out of control and I made, catastrophically the wrong decisions for the company. At the time, it felt very almost infuriating. I just wanted to go and do these things. But looking back, I realize now that he built an incredible foundation that's allowed us to do a lot of the things that we do to this day.
So what has been your biggest learning since you've taken over as the director of the company?
It's a nice question. I mean, come to mind, I would suggest the thing that springs to mind is obviously a problem shared is a problem halved. We can all feel like we need to solve problems on our own, but the strength of the organization is actually the team. So making sure that everyone knows that it's a safe environment, that if they've perhaps made a mistake, if I've made a mistake, who can I take that to? Who can I bring that to? Who can we share it with? It's amazing that when a problem gets put out on the table, all of a sudden more ideas come and all of a sudden it's not really a problem anymore. So that's probably one. I'll squeeze in another one. I know you only asked for one, but it's also it's also recognition that not all customers are for me. In the early days, I think I wanted to make every customer happy. I wanted to deliver everything for every customer. But the reality is that, maybe we were too expensive for some customers. Maybe they wanted us to compromise in things that wouldn't necessarily be in our values to compromise on, but we would try and bend over that to make it happen. And I think in the lesson learned from there was that everyone ended up disappointed. It wasn't just us, it was the customer. So now being able to recognize a customer that I think that can be a good relationship with and that we can provide value to early on in the process allows us to save their time, save our time, and just be happier at work.
Yeah, I think it was the marketing guru Seth Godin said, you don't have to market to everybody. You only need a small portion of that market that fits what you guys are all about.
Yeah, I absolutely love Seth. The countless books the man writes. I don't know how he manages it, but I came across him with Purple Cow, and yeah, that's a lot of what we try and do. We don't try to be everything to everyone, but for the customers that fit us, we want to be everything to them.
So just going back to what we were talking about previously around team, what are the qualities that you look for in employees, and how do you foster a productive and positive work environment?
Yeah, so actually just earlier on today, I was tweeting that one of my team reached out to me this morning, and he's been having a hard time for various things away from work, and he made me smile. The message he sent me, it was, he was in a kind of positive mood, and he lifted me, even though I was in a positive mood this morning anyway. He lifted me, and I think that is one of the most critical things, that as a team we can lift each other, especially given the years that we've just been through. At Utopia, we've made a kind of track record for ourselves of recognizing people who don't necessarily have the skills. They've not came to us necessarily with, the exact skill set we need, but we saw in them something that was a spark, that we knew that if we filled the skills gap, we would have a team member that would understand the vision, understand the direction, and understand everything that, they would give everything they could get us there. I'm not saying we get it right all the time. There's been lessons learned along the way, but it's understanding that kind of vision. I don't know if you can hear my cat. I think if you give me 2 seconds. once in on the podcast.
So you're saying recruit less on the technical skills and more on the ethic and values of the person.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there's certain roles within the organization that require a certain skill set to come in on. But at the same time, we have some fantastic employees that came to us. They've been with us for over a decade now, and they came to us with relatively low skill set, relatively low experience, but with a commitment, a conviction that they were going to deliver something. I remember one of the team actually didn't even have a job opening, and after being told we didn't have a job opening, he went to the job centre, got all the information about funding that was available to create a job opening, brought it back to us, and said, "Look, I've filled out what I can. If anything you need, just give me a shout." Well, we made a job opening because that was somebody who was going above and beyond before they even had their foot in the door. So, and he's became, a wonderful team member and responsible for many of the great things that have happened to the organization over the last few years.
How could you not hire somebody who does that?
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So what have been the biggest issues that you've had to overcome since you took over the company?
It has to be the big C word, the COVID. I think that took every organization by surprise. I don't think anyone really had a global pandemic. Anybody? I don't think anyone had a global pandemic in their playbook. So managing the well-being of my team while balancing the requirements to operate an organization in what was the most challenging of circumstances that I can recall, and bring us all through it. together was difficult. I'm not gonna deny it was really challenging. Puts other things completely in perspective. You know, there's been stolen equipment, there's been floods, there's been also over 20 years of business, you come across absolutely everything. You know, but the reality was that was real people stuff. You know, that was people's lives, and you know, nobody knew what was going to happen. People lost people they loved, and yeah, it was difficult. But you know, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Well, one thing we all experienced through COVID was these Zoom calls where pets and kids come into the room, and and you know, it's just part of the course for, you know, now, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you know, we definitely got kind of Zoom fatigue at the time. We were all kind of having to just live that way. I remember we set up kind of Zoom pub quizzes every weekend for the team so we could all stay connected, even though we were still talking on Zoom almost every day. It was just to make time for each other without the pressure of work. But yeah. I'm glad that we can now do in-person events. I've got a speaking thing coming up at the end of this month, and I can't wait, to be honest. It'll be the first time I've spoken in front of an audience in a number of years, and it can't come soon enough.
Yeah, I remember my first face-to-face presentation, and after COVID, and it was strange dynamic, wasn't it? Like there's actual people in the room breathing on you.
I think for me, it's the realization of the creative difference that happens when you're with people. I don't know how you found it, Andy, but like on a Zoom call, I think you can get through an agenda. You know, we can have a conversation and we can go through the points of an agenda, and we can get caught up on exactly, you know, what's happening this week. And we can have a plan out the back of that for core action points. But if we want to brainstorm like an actual plan, if we're coming up with a new product, if we're coming up with a new direction for something, it's so much better to be together in a room. And I don't know why it's so hard to do it over meetings. And obviously we had to do it over Zoom meetings for so many years. But that was a big takeaway for me. Getting people together and the difference that it makes for the outcomes is quite something when it's creative stuff.
So hopefully with COVID well behind us now, what are your aspirations for the company in the next 5 years?
Oh, that's a nice one. So, I mean, I'm hoping that I can continue to support and grow my team. So one of the most kind of enjoyable parts of being a business leader is seeing my team achieve some of the things that they want to do in their personal life. So more of that, please. Obviously, so during COVID, we launched a new website, which allows extra customization of some pretty special computer systems that aren't really available elsewhere. We're kind of moving into the server space as well. So hopefully we're going to be making a little bit of a mix up there, shaking up some of the kind of bigger guys in the industry. So in the next 5 years, making a name for ourselves in that server space would be really cool. We've been wanting a new premises for a number of years now. We've got essentially 2 retail stores that we use as our kind of bases, and I'd love to see them come together eventually and have the full team back together in one big space where we can all spend some time together. So that would be nice too.
So full office environment again.
Yeah.
Excellent. You mentioned personal life of your team earlier. How do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business?
It's a really difficult one. I remember, I think it was Matthew McConaughey said that he has he journals, of course he does. So he's journaling in the morning, and he's got his personal life, like his personal health, his family, and his career. And he tries to balance, he scores them as to where the balance is. And his recommendation was not to be too hard on yourself when one is completely out of the whack of the other, but to recognize that it's out of whack and then take steps to get it back on course. So I don't journal every morning, but I do reflect. Am I spending time with my kids? Am I spending time with my wife? When was the last time I went for a run? And what needs done at work and when is it going to get done. And, you know, it's not always in perfect step. I'll be honest, my running has fallen far away from where it was this time last year, but I'll get back, you know, and it's just that constant tweaking and balancing, which is always difficult because family changes, business changes, your priorities change. I don't think you can be too hard on yourself. Just go with the flow.
And let's not take life too seriously.
Yeah, definitely. It moves far too fast, to be honest. Just enjoy the moment. And I've got 3 kids, and they certainly keep me busy. So yeah, trying to enjoy them while they're here.
So 2 final questions then, Craig. What would you say to anyone thinking of going into business?
Make sure they enjoy running a business. I think one of the reasons, I mean, you're probably far more experienced with this than me, Andy, but one of the things I've saw is get someone like me who's maybe loves technology, so decides they want to set up a technology business, but running a business isn't playing with technology all day. It's looking after people. It's managing accounts. It's making strategy. It's planning for the future. It's dealing with you know, the flood that just happened. It's dealing with the fact that the shutters didn't open. You know, there's all these things that happen that are nothing to do with your passion, the drive that made you set up the business in the first place. So will you have the same passion for running a business as you do for the thing that you're about to start? Because, well, you might still get to do some of that thing. It's probably not going to be the most of your day. So that's that. And then also, you know, maybe take a pinch of salt of everything we watch on YouTube and Instagram these days. You know, there's so many, you know, I made $1 million after 12 months after setting up my business. You know, it doesn't work like that. Not for most of us. So set some realistic expectations of what success looks like. And if it still looks good, then go for it.
Absolutely. And then finally, what is the best advice you would give to your 18-year-old self?
Wow. Okay. I think enjoy being young and recognize just how young you are. I think that was something that took me, you know, I definitely did not appreciate the opportunities that I had when I was 18. Now looking back at my 18-year-old self, realizing that I had really no commitments whatsoever, and the world was literally my oyster. I maybe didn't acknowledge that quite so much, but then I'd also like to tell myself that everything's going to be okay. You know, you might be worried about a whole bunch of different stuff right now, but the reality is you will be in your own way successful, and everything's going to be just fine.
Well, Craig, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed learning more about you and about the company and about your journey. So much appreciated. I'm sure everybody else is going to enjoy hearing about it as well.
Thanks, Andy. It's been a real pleasure, and I really appreciate you taking the time out to let me share a little bit of our story.
Thanks, Craig.